How are you, my friend? It's great to see you.
You too, man. You too. You too. You're glowing right now, actually. What have you been up to? You been away?
No, there's a little bit of sunbeddage gone down, but I have been exercising a lot over the Christmas period, which has been good.
Oh,
Just
you as
really,
well.
yeah, thank you very much. You too. Must be really exciting to know that you're headlining London again, but it's a long way off, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? To be fair, I think it kind of makes sense. More so because of the promotion. Whereas Douglas Lima and that last fight, there was history there
Yeah.
with Amasov. Not many people know him. I think he's one of the greatest fighters in mixed martial arts right now, as shown with his record as well as his achievement. But nobody really knows about him. I mean, so it makes sense to really kind of build and build that hype towards this fight, and it's just going to make for an extra exciting fight.
You mentioned him there. I've got his record up, Michael. You know, he's undefeated. Um, he's very rounded. You know, I've watched several of his fights. I'd like to say stylistically, he's one of your most awkward opponents potentially. And you know, you talk about ATT, talk about him as arguably, I've heard, even the best grappler in the whole gym. And when you look at that gym, it's an extraordinary talent pool.
I've heard the same. Like obviously, I've been down to ATT a few times as well. I've heard the same. Yeah, I get some stories about him that he's just a nightmare in the gym. But I know many people that's nightmares in the gym. It's very different when you're out there. And again, he's don't get me wrong, he has transformed it really well, but nothing that is of the same nightmare that I hear of about in the gym. He's just very good in a lot of positions and with regards to and very well rounded as a mixed martial arts fighter. I don't necessarily think he's that dangerous standing, but he's a very good striker. He knows his angles. He's got very good, lines. He plans his strikes very well. Just not necessarily a heavy hitter in terms of like the likes of like a Douglas Lima, where you're in danger all the time. I don't like I'm gonna feel that way with him. It is more gonna be the grappling side, which means I gotta get to work.
Yeah, people will say, won't they? Oh, Michael must keep it standing. Obviously, he's very elusive anyway, as you are, and kind of control that space between you. You've got height, range, reach advantages in this fight. I know it's a mixed martial arts fight, so it's very different to anything else. And people will say, yeah, but Michael can't get caught on the ground. But maybe that's not the case in many ways.
To be fair, like again, you can see how talented he is, but we obviously we have our idea of a game plan, and we'll keep tightening it up as we're going towards the lead up to this fight. But I always like to say, for me, it's a case of just dragging people into where I am best. I don't care about anything else. You can say that anybody can have an opinion on my ground, on my jiu-jitsu, my wrestling. I do not care. That he struggles to get me to the floor, or he gets to the floor and he can't keep me there, or he can't do anything while he's on the floor, and we get up. I'm gonna have 5 chances to kill him every single every single time we stand up on our feet. And for me, it almost feels like that. You're fighting. He's going to be fighting like a Wilder type person, and the reason I say Wilder is more because Wilder doesn't necessarily need to be good at boxing. So the whole time he's in there, he only needs to get it right once, and that's how I'm feeling in this fight. I only need to get it right one time. If I fight, and to be fair, I'm good at finding that shot. So I only need to get it right once, and when I land that shot, it should be over. So I'm not interested in everything else that he has or what I should have or what I should do. We've got our game. Like I said, I just need to go out and find that shot.
The the opponents in union that you both had is Douglas Lima, of course. What did you make of his performance against Douglas Lima?
Very smart, very intelligent fight against, like I said, someone that is very dangerous. Very intelligent fight. For the first 2 minutes of every single round, he just kept himself moving, didn't give Lima a line, and then went for a great takedown. Now, Lima's got an exceptional sprawl. I've seen it against the, I just forgot the other Russian guy's name.
Against Koreshkov.
Koreshkov, yes.
Yeah.
Koreshkov, you can say his shots are, you can tell he's very strong, but once, you know, after the first fight, Grant, I do believe he did have an injury that first fight as well. But after that first fight, when they fought again a few times, Koreshkov couldn't take him down properly. He was too strong.
Yeah.
But you can see Amasov has made the adjustments. I mean, he bypassed allowing his hips. You're saying he's obviously heavy hipped. He bypassed allowing his hips to kind of, or getting stuck underneath his hips, and went straight to his hip, lifted him up from there, put him on his back away from the cage, and kept him there. The only thing that I felt was a bit disappointing was how kind of lack of care to do anything from Douglas Lima. It seemed very defeatist, like, this guy just, you know, he's not hurting me. It's just a bit frustrating, and I can't be bothered to even attempt to do anything else. So he went for one kind of something different in the 5th round, going for an armbar. But that was it. There was nothing. That should have been every round, trying to do something to change the scenario. But he seemed just kind of happy to sit there. But outside of that, if I'm just going back to Amasov, yeah, I think it was just a perfectly executed technical round. He didn't go there to finish Lima. He went there to beat him technically, and he did it.
Are you impossible to prepare for in terms of finding sparring partners who can do what you do?
Yeah, I don't think there's any. Yeah, I don't think there's a. People always go out and get karate fighters and get taekwondo. It's not the same. I am not. They are not me. They're not going to be able to replicate my range and how much I can cover. They're not going to be able to replicate speed. None of them. And like I think the best thing you have to do is I guess focus on trying to get your hands on me and drag me to the ground, which is what everyone tries to do. But that's it. In terms of trying to prepare striking wise, no, there's no point. Don't, just stay tight and try and grab me. That's the advice I give to anybody. But that's about it.
What did it mean to you? Douglas Lima had been your only defeat in Chicago. I was there all those almost 3 years ago now, of course. What did it mean to avenge defeat to you? Was that a big thing in one's career?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't kind of do it the way I wanted to do it. So this is just me. I like to be quite harsh on myself. You know, I feel like I could do better. I feel like I can do more. But yeah, obviously a win is a win. I'm happy to still be forward and going in the right direction in my career. So to be fair, I can't complain, but I'm not overly excited. I'm just happy that I'm still going in the right direction.
You are likely now for the rest of your career, given the changes after that Lima fight on the 1st of October last year, to be in 5-round fights. Not that you want to be going 5 rounds, but you're likely to be in 5-round fights now for the rest of your career. Is that exciting, or does that change things, or does it make you look at it in a different perspective? Because you're always going to be headlining, or you're going to be fighting for a title, or defending. Or defending. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously going for the title. That's being in a title fight. That's always been the same. In terms of the challenges, you know, or in a what do you call it? A headlining fight that is a 5-rounder. The only point that I made recently is more a case of, I find we make a lot of changes within the sport that affects fighters, and nobody's pay goes up. That's the only thing I feel people need to, or organizations should be taken into consideration, where there's already so much talk about the lack of pay that we get. Then we're being given extra work, and we have to do that for free. That, in all honesty, that should be, it's basically illegal. It should be illegal. And if you did that in any other job, it would be illegal. and you wouldn't get away with it. But we're having to accept that. So I'm not,
because you're training for overtime almost, aren't you? You're training to do overtime. Yeah,
I actually don't mind doing 5 rounds. I enjoy, even in the gym. It's weird. The pace is different. So 3 rounds, a higher and more intense pace. So you can technically say that's can be harder. Obviously, just going for a longer period of time can also depend on how fast paced the earlier rounds are. That can be more difficult. But in general, people tend to pace themselves a bit differently. So it's actually not that bad. But you are doing extra work, and that's gym and on the night. And like I said, nobody talks about giving us any extra for that. So that's the only thing I'd say the organization should look into. On top of we could put on an amazing performance, especially at Bellator. We don't actually have any like bonuses to give us the more incentive to want to do something special in those kind of times. I just think we need to look at certain things. But in terms of actually doing the 5 rounds, for me it doesn't matter, and I'm happy to do it. And as you say, because I'll be doing it consistently from now on, it's easy to. I'm not chopping and changing my training. I'm not going, oh yeah, I'm doing 5. I have to adjust my training. I'm doing 3. I have to change the intensity. Once I've got one thing in mind, it's easy. It's easier to kind of just go on from there.
It's a very good point about bonuses, because you've got a whole series, a phalanx of highlight reel knockouts, and you could have been gaining bonuses. Yeah.
We had bonuses.
What would it mean to you? I'm counting on my fingers here. Michael Bisping, Conor McGregor, Liam McGeary, and Conor's Ireland. Yourself now. You would only be the 4th UK or Ireland champion in a major MMA organization. There haven't been many. It's history being made here. What would that mean to be part of that pantheon of history to you?
It's just great. It just keeps reassuring supporters, reassuring people that are not supporters, or not reassuring, but kind of confirming or affirming people that are not supporters at the level that I consider myself at. And you will become. It'll be a lot harder to kind of dispute my talent when you start to achieve make these kind of achievements. And then for me, it's just like, you are put down in a book somewhere that people can actually, MVP did that and which is what I'm definitely about. I'm definitely about making history and just making big moves and making moves. And that is definitely a memorable move.
Yeah, so legacy creation is always important, isn't it? I mean, because everybody gets forgotten in time, but to create legacy is the memory and the moves and the nights and the atmospheres living on. Do you think that, even though we see it from loads of other sports people, you get it yourself, other sports recognize how brilliant our fighters are, do you think that mixed martial artists are getting enough recognition yet for who and what and how they are in our country?
In the UK, not really, not as much as I reckon it could be. There's very few. Again, I feel like I've just about broken out of that, just because of the amount of noise I tend to make in my fights and so on. It's just more the antics that I add to the fight. But just there's some talented fighters that, again, there are people over here just do not respect.
The BBC is helping that coming forward. Obviously, the last 3 years with Channel 5, Sky, BBC, that certainly helped, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely, and people are it's becoming more. I feel like it's becoming seen less, only ever so slightly, as it's just too brutal. People are actually enjoying it as an art.
Yeah.
And some people are even saying they're finding they're finding certain things more entertaining than some boxing fights. And it's just good to hear statements like, because it just means we're heading in the right direction. But yeah, we're nowhere near there at all. And I feel like like that last Bellator fight, the promotion that was put into that, unbelievable. They smashed it. They absolutely smashed it. They throughout the whole, that should be all the time though.
Yeah.
They can keep that. People will respect it more because they're seeing it more, they're forced to. It's like any form of advertising. I have to see it 5 times before I actually really look into it. And if these guys can keep doing it, they're going to be like, man, these guys are just constantly popping up everywhere. I'm on the trains, I'm on the buses, on this and that. And not just me, it's other people as well. And people are going to be like, yeah, man, you know, like I'm really, yeah, I'm going to start, you know, going to some of these shows, or I'm going to start watching it a little bit more. And when they're a bit more educated in it, you know, again, you see it less and less as a brutal sport and more as just a sport, and people will then respect it more. But it's we have to play our part as well. But yeah, this country's opening up a bit, but it's still a long way to go.
Final couple of things. Yaraslov Amasov comes from a Sambo background, you know, 4-time Sambo world champion. You're from freestyle, kickboxing, karate. You can define it as you want to in your terms, but it reminds me always when there's a style clash coming together, and styles always make fights, that old adage as we know. It kind of reminds me many ways. I always think of the clearing in the Bruce Lee movies, Enter the Dragon, and they're in the clearing with the bleachers and different styles come together. I've never asked you this. Were you a fan of Bruce Lee? Are you a fan of Bruce Lee? Do you look to him? Has he inspired you? Tell me about your feelings about Bruce Lee and maybe Muhammad Ali as well, because there's aspects of both of them that I see in you.
So yeah, with regards to Bruce Lee, you can't not respect him. I find for myself personally, I was a bit late to the party. So when Bruce Lee was big, my dad and you know my mom, everybody was watching the films and so on and so forth. I wasn't watching the films, but then I kind of grew up more on the Jackie Chans and Jet Lees and probably more inspired by them. And then later started watching, you know, the classics. And it's not, I don't think it gives you the same, it doesn't hit the same when you kind of, you're looking back on it. You didn't necessarily grow with it. But then when you start to, you know, obviously because my whole life's been martial arts, when you start to read up on what he's done and, you know, things that he says, and again, in terms of the respect level, guy's unbelievable. But in terms of inspiration, not necessarily for me. But like I said, the Jackie Chan's mainly, definitely Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, those kind of people is what I grew up on. Even Van Damme, like a lot of his martial arts film, I grew up on those kind of films. So those were more where I got a lot of inspiration from in terms of what I grew up with, and 100% Muhammad Ali as well, in terms of just him as a just a figurehead in the Black community, and just an martial artist, a fighter, an entertainer, a comedian. He was a multitude of different things. So definitely a massive inspiration.
Absolutely. You barely mentioned fighter there with Muhammad Ali. Yeah, you know, because he was such a societal figure. But just going back to Bruce Lee for one moment, when you see him doing his moves, and they always talk about, oh, they speeded it up, or I mean, I am that era, you know, poster of Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee in your bedroom when you're 11, 12, because that's the era I grew up in. The Bruce Lee movies in the 70s were just extraordinary. And obviously Muhammad Ali was fighting Joe Frazier twice or 3 times, and George Foreman in that era. We listened on things called transistors, the wireless as it was then. You know, with your dad, you're listening on the radio or the wireless. And it's just that movement of Bruce Lee, because in a weird way, I know that you're longer and rangier, and you have this huge scythe that you cut with your hands and your feet. It's like a giant scythe cutting through a field. You know, that's how I see you sometimes when you dance. You know, but the speed of Bruce Lee is what always amazed me, and his size at the end of the day, 5'5". You know, not a big guy. And always having a rose for the ladies as well. I like that about him.
Yeah, you need to remember as well, a lot of the, and I'm not taking anything away from Lucy at all, but if you look at the fight, like the heavier fighters in mixed martial arts, in comparison to the lighter fighters in mixed martial arts, how exceptionally fast they are, in comparison,
Yeah,
does make sense. Somebody that of his, he was a
he'd have been a
ultimate
bantamweight today, wouldn't he? He'd have been a bantamweight, you know.
he was an ultimate bodybuilder though. Every muscle you could see in this guy's body, which means every muscle is activated, which is definitely going to produce speed. And the fact that he's small and light anyway is only going to help with that speed. And again, you only have to watch the bantamweights now and see level of speed that they work at in comparison to like the heavier weights and the heavy division. So it does make sense. So I don't see why people would think that anything even needed to be speeded up back then.
Obviously, boxing is a sport that, you know, professionally is 150 years old, more even. And, you know, we're talking about the development of MMA over here, but, you know, heavyweight boxing at the moment, we're waiting for the two big fights. I don't know if it was easy to make the Amasov fight for you, but it's been made. We see tournaments go ahead in MMA, the best fight the best all the time. Cyril Gane fighting Francis Ngannou, very exciting rock'em sock'em robots almost MMA fight in the UFC at the weekend. Yet stalling with Joshua and Usyk and Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. Obviously, you've ventured into boxing, and what do you make of the heavyweight fights not being made in boxing? Is that disappointing to you? And does boxing perhaps need to learn from MMA in a way to get the fights made? Because all it does in the end is kind of just make everyone think what is wrong with the sport, the fans of it. You know, obviously when they're made, it's great. Fury and Wilder was one of the big fights last year, massive success. But how do you see it from your perspective? And, you know, do you think boxing can learn something from MMA in that way, Michael?
Yeah, it definitely can. But again, it is a very, very different sport. There is a lot more money involved. There's a lot more people that want to be paid. There's a lot more people that means have to check the boxes to say, okay, I'm happy with what I'm going to be getting here. I'm happy with that piece of the pie that I'm getting here. It is very, very political, very, very political. But then there's also the marketing side of things, and people trying to, you know, I believe people shy away from fights and go to different fights just to, I think it's better for their career or whatever. So there's that involved. It's just a lot. This is one of the reasons why I actually didn't want to go down the boxing route in the first place. I wanted to, then made it seem to be a lot more straightforward. Like, okay, you versus him, fight, see who wins, whatever, and then on to the next one. And even with us, we still have our own politics as well, but nowhere near as it is deep rooted in.
Well, the big one in MMA is leagues don't cross over with each other. Like, we're not getting to see you against the likes of Masvidal or Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz or Darren Till, or, you know, they're all great matchups. Well, and we'll never see them, will we? Unless you're in another organization or they're in another organization.
Exactly. So, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's kind of our politics. But within the actual organizations themselves, it seems relatively straightforward. Matchmakers, I would just do it, and people kind of have to get on with it. And then, yeah, and the boxing can definitely learn a bit more. But I think when there's so much money involved with so many people to pay, it's never going to be that quick. It's never going to be that straightforward. I do find boxers can be a bit more diva-ish than the guys, you know, the fighters in the MMA world. But I think it's also because we're not used to being able to have any say whatsoever. So we kind of shut our mouths and get on with it. So I think there's a balance for both sides to be made.
Michael, May the 13th, may the force be with you. May we have a new champion, a world champion. It's brilliant to see you as always. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, man. It's always good to talk to you, Gareth.